Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Introduction: the two characters in your mind. Have you ever made a snap judgment that turned out to be surprisingly accurate? Or perhaps a decision you thought was carefully considered, yet in hindsight seemed flawed? What if I told you that these contrasting mental experiences are the work of two distinct characters constantly operating within your mind? Welcome to this audiobook summary of Thinking Fast and Slow by Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman. This groundbreaking book takes us on a fascinating journey into the machinery of the mind, revealing the two systems that drive the way we think. System 1 is fast, intuitive, and emotional. System 2 is slower, more deliberative, and more logical. We'll explore the extraordinary capabilities and also the biases and errors of intuitive thinking. You'll discover how these two systems shape your judgments, decisions, and even your perception of reality. Understanding this dual process model can help you make better choices in your personal and professional life, and even understand the mistakes of others with greater clarity. Are you ready to meet the two protagonists of your mental story? Daniel Kahneman, a psychologist who won the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences in 2002, is one of the most influential thinkers of our time. His work, often in collaboration with his longtime colleague Amos Tversky, revolutionized our understanding of human judgment and decision-making. Thinking Fast and Slow is a culmination of decades of research, making complex psychological concepts accessible to a broad audience. The book's impact has been immense, influencing fields from economics and medicine to politics and public policy. It challenges the traditional view of humans as purely rational actors by demonstrating the predictable ways in which our thinking can go astray. But it's not just about errors. It's also about appreciating the marvels of intuitive thought and learning when to trust our gut and when to question it. Meet System 1 and System 2, the stars of the show. Imagine your mind as a stage with two lead actors, System 1 and System 2. System 1 is the impulsive, automatic, and often unconscious star. It's the one that makes you instantly know the answer to 2 plus 2, detect hostility in a voice, or complete the phrase bread and butter. It operates effortlessly and quickly, generating impressions, feelings, and intuitions that are the main sources for the explicit beliefs and deliberate choices of System 2. Think of it as your gut reaction, your immediate sense of things. It's a legacy of our evolutionary past, designed to make quick assessments for survival. Is that a threat? Is this familiar? Then there's System 2, the supporting actor who often believes it's the hero. This is your conscious, reasoning self, the part of you that decides what to think about and what to do. System 2 is mobilized when a question arises for which System 1 doesn't have an easy answer, like calculating 17 by 24. Its operations are effortful, requiring attention and concentration. Think of it as the deliberate, analytical part of your mind that you engage when solving a complex problem, filling out a tax form, or monitoring your behavior in a social situation. Kahneman uses a brilliant metaphor. System 1 is like mental shotgun, firing off multiple assessments and computations simultaneously and automatically. System 2 is more like a spotlight, focusing its limited attention on effortful mental activities. Now here's the catch. System 2 is inherently lazy. It often defaults to the answers and suggestions provided by System 1 because engaging in effortful thought is, well, effortful. This division of labor is usually highly efficient, minimizing effort and optimizing performance. System 1 is generally very good at what it does. Its models of familiar situations are accurate, and its initial reactions are swift and usually appropriate. But, and this is a big but, System 1 has biases. It's prone to systematic errors in specific circumstances because it sometimes answers easier questions than the one it was asked and has little understanding of logic and statistics. Have you ever felt a strong intuition that later turned out to be completely wrong? That was likely System 1 leading System 2 astray. Kahneman illustrates this with concepts like cognitive ease and strain. When things feel easy and familiar, System 1 is in charge, and we're more likely to be in a good mood, trust our intuitions, and be relatively casual in our thinking. But when we encounter cognitive strain, say, reading a poorly printed text or a complex argument, System 2 is mobilized, making us more vigilant, suspicious, and less prone to intuitive errors, but also less creative. It's fascinating how these subtle shifts in mental effort can dramatically alter our judgments, isn't it? Heuristics and biases, the mental shortcuts and their pitfalls. So, if System 1 is doing so much of our thinking automatically, how does it arrive at its conclusion so quickly? Kahneman explains that it often relies on heuristics, mental shortcuts or rules of thumb that help us make judgments and solve problems efficiently. While these heuristics are often useful, they can also lead to systematic errors or biases. Understanding these is key to understanding ourselves. One of the most famous is the availability heuristic. This is where we judge the frequency or probability of an event by how easily examples come to mind. For instance, after seeing several news reports about plane crashes, you might feel that flying is more dangerous than it statistically is, simply because those vivid images are readily available in your memory. Or consider the divorces among Hollywood celebrities. They attract a lot of media attention, making them highly available in our minds, likely leading us to overestimate their actual frequency. This isn't just about big events, it even affects how we perceive our contributions in a team. Often we remember our own efforts more clearly than those of others, leading to an overestimation of our input. Ever felt like you do more of the housework than your partner? That could be the availability heuristic at play. Then there's the representativeness heuristic. This is where we judge the probability that an object or event A belongs to class B by the degree to which A resembles B or fits a stereotype. Kahneman uses the classic Tom W. example, a personality sketch of a highly intelligent but uncreative student with a need for order and clarity. When asked to rank fields of specialization by likelihood, people overwhelmingly match Tom W. to stereotypes of fields like computer science or engineering, neglecting crucial base rate information, like the actual number of students enrolled in those fields. If there are far more humanities students than computer science students, then statistically, Tom is more likely to be a humanities student, even if his description fits the nerd stereotype. This neglect of base rates is a common sin of representativeness. Another sin is insensitivity to the quality of evidence. We often give too much weight to vivid descriptions, even if we're told the source is unreliable. And who could forget the Linda problem? Linda is described as 31, single, outspoken, very bright, a philosophy major, concerned with discrimination and social justice, and an anti-nuclear demonstrator. Is it more probable that Linda is a bank teller or that Linda is a bank teller and active in the feminist movement? Most people choose the latter, even though it violates a fundamental rule of logic. A conjunction of two events cannot be more probable than one of the events alone. Why? Because feminist bank teller is more representative of Linda's description. It creates a more coherent story in our minds, even though it's statistically less likely. This is a powerful demonstration of how our System 1 jumps to conclusions based on plausibility rather than probability. What if I told you that even statistically sophisticated individuals fall for this? It highlights how deeply ingrained these heuristics are. Kahneman also introduces the concept of anchoring. This occurs when people consider a particular value for an unknown quantity before estimating that quantity. That initial value, the anchor, powerfully influences subsequent estimates, even if the anchor is completely arbitrary, like a number spun on a wheel of fortune. If asked if Gandhi was more than 114 years old when he died, your subsequent estimate of his age at death will be higher than if the anchor was, say, 35. This happens through two mechanisms: System 2 adjusting, often insufficiently, from the anchor, or System 1 being primed by the anchor, selectively evoking compatible evidence. Are you aware of how often seemingly irrelevant numbers might be anchoring your own judgments? Overconfidence and the illusion of understanding. One of the most pervasive themes in Kahneman's work is our tendency towards overconfidence. We believe we understand the past, which implies the future should also be knowable. This leads to what Nassim Taleb calls the narrative fallacy. We construct simple, coherent, and often flawed stories of the past to make sense of the world, which fosters an illusion of inevitability. Think about the story of Google's success. In hindsight, it seems like a straight path, but this narrative ignores the countless chance events and decisions that could have led to a different outcome. This illusion of understanding the past directly feeds into hindsight bias, the "I knew it all along" effect. Once an event occurs, we revise our memory of our past beliefs to fit the outcome, making the event seem more predictable than it actually was. This is particularly unkind to decision-makers, as their choices are often judged by the outcome bias, rather than the soundness of the decision process at the time. A doctor who makes a reasonable decision for a low-risk surgery, where an unpredictable accident occurs, might be unfairly blamed in hindsight. Kahneman also discusses the illusion of validity and the illusion of skill. We often feel confident in our judgments, even when they are based on weak evidence or are no better than chance. He recounts his own experience in the Israeli army evaluating candidates for officer training. Despite compelling impressions of individual candidates, their actual ability to predict future performance was negligible. Yet this knowledge didn't shake their confidence in their specific predictions for the next batch of candidates. Similarly, he critiques the illusion of skill in stock picking, where most fund managers fail to consistently beat the market, yet the belief in skill persists, fueled by a professional culture and the compelling, but often misleading, stories of success. What you see is all there is, WCT, plays a huge role here. We build coherent stories from the limited information we have, often ignoring our ignorance. How often do we mistake luck for skill in our own lives or in evaluating others? The book also contrasts intuitions versus formulas. Decades of research, pioneered by Paul Meehl, show that simple statistical algorithms often outperform expert human judgment in predicting various outcomes, from academic success to medical diagnoses. This is because experts, while possessing valuable knowledge, are often inconsistent and susceptible to biases, whereas formulas apply rules consistently. There's a natural hostility to algorithms making decisions that affect humans, rooted in our preference for the natural over the artificial. But Kahneman makes a compelling case for their utility, especially in low-validity environments where predictability is poor. When can we trust expert intuition? Kahneman and Gary Klein concluded that intuition is likely to be skilled when two conditions are met. The environment is sufficiently regular to be predictable, and there's an opportunity to learn these regularities through prolonged practice with clear feedback. Chess masters have it. Long-term political forecasters don't. Choices, values, and frames, the two selves. The final part of the book delves into the nature of choice, particularly how our preferences are shaped by frames and how we experience life versus how we remember it. Kahneman introduces prospect theory, developed with Amos Tversky, which challenges expected utility theory. Prospect theory highlights three cognitive features. Evaluation is relative to a neutral reference point, often the status quo. We experience diminishing sensitivity to both gains and losses. And, crucially, losses loom larger than gains. Loss aversion. The famous S-shaped value function illustrates this. The pain of a loss is psychologically more powerful than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. This leads to the endowment effect. We value things we own more highly than things we don't. Professor Rosette, who wouldn't sell a bottle of wine from his collection for $100 but wouldn't pay more than $35 for it, exemplifies this. Giving up something you own is perceived as a loss, while acquiring it is a gain, and losses hurt more. The concept of framing effects is powerful. Logically equivalent statements can evoke vastly different reactions depending on how they are presented. Italy won and France lost mean the same thing logically but trigger different associations. More starkly, a medical treatment described with a 90% survival rate is far more appealing than one with a 10% mortality rate, even though they describe the same outcome. Our preferences, Kahneman argues, are often about framed problems, not reality itself. This has profound implications for public policy, as seen in organ donation rates, which vary dramatically based on whether the default is opt-in or opt-out. Finally, Kahneman introduces the distinction between the experiencing self and the remembering self. The experiencing self lives life moment by moment, while the remembering self constructs stories about those experiences and makes decisions based on those memories. The remembering self, however, is prone to biases like duration neglect. The duration of an experience has little impact on the memory of it. And the peak-end rule. We tend to remember the peak emotional moment and the end of an experience most vividly. This was shown in experiments where patients preferred a longer colonoscopy with a less painful ending over a shorter one that ended at peak pain, even though the longer one involved more total pain. The remembering self, in its quest for good stories, can sometimes lead the experiencing self to unnecessary suffering. This leads to the focusing illusion. Nothing in life is as important as you think it is when you are thinking about it. We tend to overestimate the impact of single factors, like climate on happiness or a new car on our long-term well-being, because when we think about them, they loom large, neglecting the myriad other aspects of our daily experience. Conclusion: navigating a complex world with two systems. Thinking fast and slow doesn't just point out our flaws, it offers a richer understanding of the human mind. We learned that our mental life is a complex interplay between the intuitive, automatic System 1 and the effortful, deliberate System 2. While System 1 is the source of many of our biases and errors, it's also the engine of our expertise and much of what we do right. The key isn't to eliminate System 1, which is impossible, but to learn to recognize situations where its intuitions are likely to be misleading and to engage System 2 more deliberately. Kahneman emphasizes that improving judgment and decision-making is hard work. We are better at recognizing the errors of others than our own. However, by developing a richer vocabulary to discuss these cognitive pitfalls, terms like anchoring, availability, framing, WYCATI, prospect theory, and the two selves, we can become better critics of our own and others' thinking. Organizations, he suggests, can be better at avoiding errors than individuals by implementing slower, more orderly procedures like checklists and pre-mortems. Now, let's ponder some questions to see how these profound ideas might change your perspective. Which of the two systems, System 1 or System 2, do you think dominates your own daily decision-making more often? And in what situations might this be a problem? Can you recall a time when the availability heuristic, ease of recall, led you to misjudge the probability of an event? How might you approach similar situations differently now? Reflecting on the peak end rule, how might this bias affect your memory of a recent important experience, and what does this tell you about your remembering self? Consider a recent important decision you made. Were you aware of the frame through which you viewed the options, and could a different frame have led to a different choice? Thinking fast and slow is an invitation to a more nuanced understanding of ourselves. It's a journey not just into how we think, but how we can think better. Don't stop here. Let this be a catalyst for more mindful choices and a deeper appreciation for the complex, fascinating, and occasionally fallible machinery of the human mind.